Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Our talk is on the development of monitoring protocols for KwaZulu-Natal's threatened frog species and using citizen science to implement these. Jean Tarrant is the consultant on this project, and I'm giving this talk basically for her because she's running the session. Amphibians are a very ancient group, and there are over 7,300 species known at present. Yet they have suffered global declines in population sizes in recent decades, or many of the species have. This is a map of the world by geographic regions, and the number of evaluated amphibian species is indicated at the bottom of the box. The number of extinct in the wild, or critically endangered species are indicated in the red dots. And the figure in the orange dots are those that are endangered or vulnerable. Amphibians are the most threatened class of vertebrates. 32% of species that have been evaluated are critically endangered or vulnerable. And 43% of the evaluated species have declining populations. About 168 species are thought to be already extinct. And some of these extinctions have happened without population declines being detected. There are various causes for these declines in population sizes and extinctions. Most important one is habitat destruction and fragmentation, also pollution of waters, and introduced species and diseases is another major cause of extinctions and population decline, such as the chytrid fungus. All these factors can operate together synergistically to create the perfect storm for amphibian extinctions. Approximately 1/3 of the number of frog species in South Africa are threatened. This map indicates the number of red-list species per province, and the Western Cape has the highest number of red-listed species. And they also have had several monitoring programs in place at several sites over many years. KwaZulu-Natal has the second highest number of red-list species, yet we've only had one monitoring program, and that is for chytrid fungus, underway. HE Target 12 of the Convention on Biological Diversity is to improve and sustain the conservation status of threatened species and prevent the extinction. So populations of threatened frog species need to be monitored in KwaZulu-Natal to ensure that populations do not decline unnoticed, to assess the success or otherwise of conservation management interventions, and also to provide data for adaptive management purposes. So Ezemvelo KZN Wildlife is developing a monitoring program for threatened frog species. The program is going to include 4 species initially: the critically endangered Pickersgill's reed frog, which is endemic to the coastal region of KwaZulu-Natal, as indicated in the map there. The endangered kloof frog, which is endemic to the coastal and subcoastal area of the southern part of KwaZulu-Natal and the northern part of the Eastern Cape. The endangered long-toed tree frog, which is endemic to the western and southern temperate grasslands and marshes. And the mist-belt chirping frog, which is an endangered species and endemic to the temperate grasslands and forests in southern KwaZulu-Natal. Ezemvelo KZN Wildlife has developed norms and standards for monitoring plans for all species that are going to be monitored. There's a standard format which is followed, but not every section is applicable to every species. One of the important components of the monitoring plan is the ecological model, where the life cycle or life history of the species is given, but also importantly, the threats to the life history stages and also to the ecological requirements of the species. Another important component of the monitoring plan is the conceptual model, where management activities can be implemented to ameliorate particular threats to the species, the population of the species, or to the habitat of the species. Of course, another important component are the monitoring goals. And for example, one of the goals is to increase the subpopulation sizes at surveillance and monitoring sites within 20 years. And those are the parameters that we want to monitor. The monitoring objectives are to collect and analyze appropriate data on the response of populations to management interventions, and to assess whether new management actions are required to ensure the stability and increase in those populations. And also to assess change in the extent of occurrence, EOO, and the area of occupancy, AOO, of the species. So the management objectives are to ensure the persistence of viable populations at the monitored sites, and surveillance is just one form of monitoring, and to improve the status of the monitored species by 2020 in accordance with HE Target 12, or as soon as possible after that. And I think we said by 2045 for some of the species. To do this, we have to maintain or improve population size and maintain or improve EOO and AOO. But a lack of resources means that Ezemvelo KZN Wildlife cannot do this alone. And this is where interested members of the public can provide valuable assistance to the organization in reaching its monitoring and management objectives. A monitoring protocol for the kloof frog was tested by honorary officers at Vernon Crooks Nature Reserve. Now, there are many ways of monitoring a species, and we chose for this species monitoring of egg clumps. And the reason is that the egg clumps are conspicuous because they are laid on vegetation or on the sides of rocks over water. And another reason is that the eggs can be easily counted. You can see a developing tadpole in the egg capsule here. And you can easily count the eggs. So the honorary officers monitored a specific stretch of a stream in the reserve, and these yellow circles indicate where they found egg clutches on one monitoring occasion. I'm just going to present some results for the past year or so. So the primary response variable for this species is the number of clutches. And you can see that the frog does not lay eggs in midwinter, and few on either side of midwinter, but mainly in summer. A secondary A response variable are the number of eggs counted, and in the pilot study, most eggs were laid in March. Other environmental variables and parameters are also measured because these may be important for the frog to complete its life cycle. So, for example, mean height of clutches above water, mean water depth below the clutches, and the flow rate of the stream. And over the years, we can determine from the data whether we need to carry on monitoring these variables and others or not. A surveillance protocol for the Pickersgills reed frog has been piloted by landowners, homeowners at Simbiti Eco Estate. These green balloons indicate spots from which monitoring has been carried out around a wetland. And monitoring has also been carried out at this wetland here. And balloons with stars in indicate spots from which adult male Pickersgills reed frogs have been heard calling. And this type of surveillance allows changes in population distribution and in population size to be monitored. So this frog population has been monitored by recording the number of calling males. The number of calling males was classified into 4 classes. And to give the initial results of the summer 2013, or some initial results from the summer of 2013-2014, at site 49, we can see that the male Pickersgills reed frogs started calling in October, and by March had finished calling, and that the peak of calling was in December and January. At second site, a similar pattern was seen, except the peak in calling started in November at that site and continued into December. So in conclusion, monitoring of threatened frog species populations is necessary to prevent further population size decline and to prevent extinction. And what we have seen from the pilot study is that interested members of the public can assist ably with the monitoring. And because they are able to assist with the monitoring and surveillance, Ezemvelo KZN Wildlife can ensure that all threatened species are monitored. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible. So we just want to thank the various citizen scientists who have been involved in the monitoring, to Peter Goodman for guiding the development of the monitoring plan norms and standards, and to Ezemvelo KZN Wildlife for funding. Thank you.